Everybody else, and I don't know if we've got a good evening there or not. Everybody's silent today. Well, can I start with everything is pretty much fall here in north central Wisconsin. We'd actually got down into the 30s this week, and I changed all my summer flowers. They're now fall flowers. Pretty soon, pumpkins. The air is sure different, and nature is sure different. This is just a little story. I went out on the deck the other day, and there was a tiny wren sitting on the edge of the bird bath, and she immediately starts getting real chatty and real loud. And I thought, what's the deal here? The only thing was that I neglected to fill the bird bath up. There was only about a saucer of water in there. So then I went, and it sounded like she was scolding me, actually. She was very vocal, very loud. And so I went and filled up the bird bath. Well, she flew away while I did that, but she waited in the trees nearby, and then she came back and took her drink. So I guess that was what was wrong, but sometimes you wonder how something so small can make so much noise. That sound really carries, as I heard her in the house and everything while I'm filling up the water. So I was thinking the other day, what's in a word? What's in a sound? What's in movement? Sound, light, waves. The all is. The real side, and singing the new you sound. Sounds are interesting, and since I like the music field, I try to be more aware, and it just, I think it happens that I hear a lot of stuff. Once I took a class, well, there's a couple classes I could talk about in college where it was a music appreciation class, a very simple one where you just listen to the songs and write down who wrote them. They'd play a little snippet of it, and then, you just say who it was and what it was. Well, in that class, my ear became so attuned to mistakes, like, let's say, a violin would play or somebody would sing. So we'd have assigned concerts we had to go to, and I started hearing all these things during the concerts, and I couldn't enjoy them like I used to. But now I think I can enjoy them again. But I hear it. I still hear the sounds that are the notes that are either flat or sharp or something like that. So it was an interesting happening. I also had a professor who was kind of strange. He came bounding into class every morning after he rode his bike to class, even in the snow and the blizzards. And he would bang his head with a tuning fork. Now, the tuning forks in my day were all tuned to the 440A. And then after he'd bang his head with the fork, he'd hum A. And of course, then we'd all have to hum A. And frequently during class, he would do this on his head, or he'd all of a sudden point to you and say, hum A. So that became the dreaded note of the day. But anyway, it was interesting. And now they talk a lot about the hertzes. The A was 440 in my day, and it had been since, his name, Goebbels, decided to change it from 432. Now they're coming back to the 432 hertz. If anybody has any questions, just feel free to fire them away there. I got to get a sip of something because my mouth is dry today. Anyway, Pythagoras was not only a great mathematician, but he was also a great musician. So he was born about 2,500 years ago. And he also lived for nearly 100 years. He had a mystery school that he founded, and he immediately drew thousands of disciples. His criterion for admittance was stringent, resulting in a cultivated community of devout geniuses. The curriculum was designed with a single underlying purpose: to bring the lives of men and women into harmony with the divine. And I heard once, or read it once a long time ago, that if you were admitted into your school, you were never allowed to see him speak for 3 years. And after you went through the discipline of that, he allowed you into the mystery school. And I also heard that he had a healing room or rooms in his school, and he would have somebody, if somebody was emotionally distressed or mentally distressed or physically ill, he would take them into that room and send them with a certain musician and have the musician play for the person who was out of balance, let's say, with any of their problems. Pythagoras also, now that this society, we are getting back to the 432 hertz. And Pythagoras also used the 432 as A. And each wavelength, each sound has its own specific purpose. And he also, one of the things, he also played kithara, which is an ancient form of the guitar, and he sang while he played his music. They said, this is what I read, they told, that he could soothe animals and people. And he recognized the effect that music had on the senses and the emotions of the people he played for. Eventually, I guess he came to call it musical medicine, which is interesting. There's a tale, I'm going to read this one. There was a tale, I got to have a sip of water here. There was a tale that was told, and it says, the power of music comes from an ancient tale of a young man who had a few too many drinks and was filled with jealousy and placing kindling about his mistress's door with the plans to burn her house down. However, the young man was distracted by a flautist who was nearby playing a tune in the Pythagorean mode. Pythagoras encouraged the musician to play a rhythmic mode, which made the intoxicated man suddenly become composed and return home after first gathering his kindling from his mistress's door. So I guess music does soothe this savage beast. Well, I can talk a little bit more about Pythagoras. He was the first person to prescribe music as medicine. He is considered the father of harmonics, and he applied the principles of harmonics to everything from music, art, and architecture to running governments, raising a family, friendship, and personal development. He's also considered the father of philosophy. In fact, he was the first person to introduce the word philosophy. His teachings, the golden verses, and his universal application of the golden means are a testament to his transcendent genius. So now we are back to the Pythagoras scale now. And if you go on the internet, you can find a lot of symphonies. Orchestras are totally tuned to the 432. Now, I don't know if any of you have listened to it before, but it is, you don't notice the difference, or I didn't right away, but as you listen to more of these symphonies or arias, what is being played, or songs being sung in the 432, you start liking it after you go back to the 440. I mean, this 432 has been since ancient times, and they used to have a scale that only went up 6 notes. Like we use do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, and in his time the words were ut, re, mi, fa, sol, la. Anyway, what was I going to go from there?
You didn't have an octave scale?
No, it wasn't an octave scale. And that was added much later. And I know Paul Twitchell, when he was doing his Eckankar, he had what he called spiritual exercise, and you would chant the word SUGMAD up a note of the scale. And it always kind of bothered me because I was so used to having a sound resolve itself that, well, anyway, it bothered me at first until I got used to it. But that is the Pythagorean scale. And and that's what I said a lot of musicians are using now in their music. When we live in this dense man-made EMF with, the frequencies, the power grids, the cell phone microwave towers, TVs, etc., big cities, we have an extreme difficulty being receptive to the natural solars and other planetary things that are going on in the cycles. It's gotten very, very bad out there, and it's going to get worse with the G5. Our bodies, I don't know, are not tuned to those single waves. We need a broader spectrum. It said the man-made electromagnetic radiation can cause everything from brain cell DNA damage to severe alterations in health, mood, emotional stability, and behavior. So anything we can do to help our natural environment is a big plus, and let alone what it's doing to the animals too. I mean, there's a lot out there. I used to raise cockatiels, and I had one female, and I let her pretty much, I believe it or not, I had her potty trained to go in the cage to do her business, and then she'd come back out. So I gave her pretty much freedom in the house. And when birds eat, they get really messy and the seeds go flying, right? Well, my carpet had, a thicker nap to it, if you want to say. And I would look at her, and she would see something I didn't see at all. She'd be picking up a seed, and I go, where was that? I vacuumed, until I had one day, I saw what she saw. My eyes changed, or my vision, what I was perceiving changed. And all of a sudden, it was like the carpet separated and became 3D. And I could see her picking up the seeds. And I thought, that's how she does it. They see different. So I just thought that was kind of interesting when that happened to me. It's interesting because they do know what they're doing, and they do take their cues from our environment. A long time ago, I don't know if you're up for another story, but in North Fort Myers, they have a place called the Octagon, and this place rescues animals that are no longer wanted at circuses or homes. Somebody buys a tiger, and they didn't realize he was going to get to 700 pounds in his apartment. They give the animals away, whether from a farm, like emus or a cattle, or in this case, the one I'm going to talk about is a big male lion, and he had a tremendous enclosure. It was huge. And he also had sort of like a cave in the back that was all stone, I suppose, that he could cool himself off with if he sat back there. But I was watching him at a distance, and as soon as somebody would walk up to the fence there, the steel fence, he would take a running start, and he would stop right when he got to the edge, and he'd roar, let out this big roar. And then, of course, the people were scared, and then he'd trot back to his place in the shade. And I thought, I wonder what that feels like. So I walked up, and lo and behold, he comes charging, right in front of me, he stops dead and he roars. And I'm going to tell you, the sound from that went from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet. It just was so loud, it shook my whole body. And I thought, wow, I'd be running if that were out in Africa. And of course, then he'd probably chase me. But I never experienced a sound that loud from an animal like that. It was just incredible sound.
Do you have A at 440?
Yeah, I don't know. I think he had them all. You know, we're let's see. You know, sounds like we were talking before are either beneficial, the birds singing out in the yard. I mean, how wonderful is it to get up and hear those birds singing? It's wonderful. Or they're destructive, like hard rock, acid rock, rap. There's when it comes on, if we're riding in the car, it's like you got to turn it off because it's so awful, and it does not good things to your body, your cells. I in my 20s, I went on a date to a club, and the rock band was playing, and I had to leave because I thought I was having a heart attack from the music. I mean, it went directly into my heart. I was almost doubled over in pain, and I had to get out. So that stuff really isn't good for our bodies. I don't think the animals would like it either. Paul Twitchell, this reminds me of something else, wrote a tiny book called Eckankar Music. And had a pink cover. And in there he stated that there was one piece that Stravinsky had written, and I think it was titled The Rite of Spring or The Galloping Polka. He said if a person were to lock himself in a room with that playing, he would eventually go crazy. And Stravinsky's music, to me, I don't like it either. It's very discordant. It almost doesn't resolve itself. And I had one in the symphony that I had to sing, and it was hard. It was really hard to sing it because everybody was singing in all over the place. So we are real beings from the real you. You know, even the slaves, this isn't as dramatic as that, well, who worked on the railroad or who worked in the farms, they sang. I think the Africans do a lot of singing. The Indians had their powwows and their singing and their dancing. And
I've been working on the railroad.
yeah, well, yeah. They came up with songs too, and it actually helps you during the day. It gives you energy, and you feel better. And I know now I sing new you, or new you. Didn't sound right there. All day, and if I'm not singing it, I'm singing it in my head all the time. I know they're doing a lot of research now with the brain and music and singing. I know one of the famed opera singers, Renee Fleming. I've got a lot of her CDs because sometimes I practice songs that I sing. When I practice it, I put on her CD and sing along to get the gist of a song, and it really makes a difference in the body. It makes a difference in how you feel about things. It makes you feel better, that's for sure. And they did tests on her. They ran her through MRIs and the CAT scanning with her brain as she was singing a song or humming a song or just thinking about a song. It wasn't the words song. It was the words of the song. It was just thinking of her singing them, and she said that the imaging was very, very strong. Even when she was thinking about singing the song or imagining it, that she was performing it, was stronger. Actually, had stronger waves than what occurred when she just sang it or just talked the words. But it all means something, that's for sure. The other day, I had turned on the TV to sit down for a couple seconds, and they had Dr. Oz was on, and he was talking about dancing the salsa. And he said its research shows that it makes you smarter longer. Those were his couple of words there. And I thought, well, I'm going to look that up. When I was small, I took tap and ballet. And then when I hit the junior high level, my mother started me dancing when I was 5. And so when I got to the the 12, 13-year-old, I started ballroom dancing because the studio I went to offered that. And I think it's true. You feel the music, that's for sure. You're dancing, you're getting the body going, so the brain is getting stimulated. And how many watch Dancing with the Stars? Did anybody watch that? No?
Well, if you dance with me, and you want to dance with the stars, what'll happen is after about the third step, you'll trip over my feet. You'll fall, hit your head, and you'll see stars.
Yeah. This is true.
And then if you're in a ballroom, you'll start bawling.
Yeah.
It hurts so bad.
We don't dance together. But that's beautiful to watch, and they say it releases a lot of stress when you dance. And I loved my classes when I went to dance class. It just kind of peps you up, makes you feel alive. You're out there and doing it. And the only one that didn't make me feel so alive was the polka I took on one time. I thought I was going to pass out. It's fast and it's long and it keeps going, and hop, step, step. Lawrence Welk time. So it's really good. You'd think, even though I did get extremely tired from that, I still felt good. It just gets you going. So these bodies are made to move. There's I don't know, and I remember in one of my classes they showed a plate of sand. It was a special plate. I forgot the name of it now, but they had sand in there. And they took a violin player, and as the violin player was playing the song, the sand arranged itself in a pattern. And then they muted the violin and played just like with the strings, and the sand became all deranged. There was no pattern to it whatsoever. It was here, there, and everywhere. But if the violin played, it made a beautiful pattern. So it does have an effect. I just thought that was so interesting. One time I read that the ancient languages like Sanskrit or Hebrew, I think this came from class too, because they did it with sand. When they spoke, or when these vowels, I guess they had, were pronounced, the sand would actually move in the shape of the written symbol for those vowels. So there is something.
Well, that's the whole idea behind.
Yeah.
The whole idea behind Sanskrit, and I think Dwayne touched on that in one of his books that I read in the last 3 months, was that when somebody speaks Sanskrit, the whole idea behind the language was the words in the language would create a mental image of the subject matter that you were talking about. It would actually create the mental image and an audio soundtrack, so you'd get the full impact of what the language was trying to communicate. Something like that.